Welcome to the show. From Peterson's, I'm your host, Taylor Sienkiewicz, and you're listening to You Have a Cool Job, a podcast highlighting those who took their profession in a unique direction and what they did to get there. On today's episode of You Have a Cool Job, we talk with the chief engineer of the Port of Miami, Helga Sommer. This job carries a lot of responsibility as the port is known as the cruise capital of the world and spreads over 518 acres. So I asked Helga, who recently became the chief engineer, if big water projects were her specialty prior to this position.
It was not my specialty. I actually got thrown here sort of by accident, and I sort of picked it up along the way.
Okay, how did that happen?
I'm an engineer. Obviously, I was a civil engineer, but I was actually working on water resource projects for the Everglades restoration. And right around the time of the recession, a lot of our projects had gotten canceled. Mm-hmm. And the company that I was working for at the time had a program management consulting contract with the Port of Miami. And so they gave me a call one day and they said, you know what, you're going to the port tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. And what do you need me to do there? And they said, look, we have this sort of general open-ended contract. You're an extension of staff. And they said, just make yourself indispensable. And they didn't tell me anything else. And I was like, oh, all right. And so I showed up here with a handful of other people and an architect, and I was the engineer, and there was an architect, and there was a handful of others. And then I never left.
So was that kind of your first big project, or what is it like to work for such a large structure, I guess?
No, I had done a lot of other projects that were also large. And so I had already had experience managing large projects, multiple disciplines, and with staff from different companies and different people in different parts of the country and so forth. So that part I'd already done. I guess the biggest difference here was, I hadn't actually worked on cruise terminal design, but a lot of the utilities and a lot of the other projects that we have here in the port were not completely unusual.
I asked Helga what it's like working at such a busy transportation hub.
A lot of running.
Okay.
We're in the front end of a very large program of expansion. So it's been, to say it's hectic is an understatement. Our capital project budget for the program budget was about $250 million for about 5 years, and it's ballooned to almost $2 billion. So there's a lot of new construction going on, and the interesting part about it is that there's just so many projects, and we're on an island. So really, it's a large city on the head of a pin, basically. So trying to coordinate all of that construction and the design and all of that work going on at the same time and in close proximity to each other that's a challenge. So we're designing, we're constructing, we're still planning a lot of new projects. It's hectic. There's a lot of people involved and a lot of moving parts, and we're operating at the same time. So that makes it even more interesting. Helga
explained how at this point in her career, her job has veered away from the nitty-gritty of engineering as she stepped into a management role.
Really now it's the coordination of these really large projects. And so it's not just structural, but there's mechanical and electrical and civil, and there's just fire and just every discipline. And we have to coordinate all of that and sort of make sure that it all works together.
Okay. So that sounds like something more people would understand is that you're managing just different moving parts. Exactly. Okay. Great. And Helga, what is your favorite project you've worked on?
My goodness, there's been so many of them. I want to pick one of the ones that I'm working on right now. I'm just so afraid that I don't want to jinx it because it's not over. To be honest, right now I would say the expansion of one of our terminals here is expansion of Cruise Terminal F, and really it was because we had such a good team, and that's really what made it a great project. It was an expansion of the terminal and partial renovation of the existing structure. And it really was the first project that we did of this, starting to get into the scale. And we hadn't done it before, and we kind of had a team of people thrown together. And it was really our first go-round of trying to structure these kinds of project teams together. And so I think what really made it was seeing that work and seeing us finish something on time and under budget that everybody said it couldn't be done. And it was nice to celebrate that once it was done.
Yeah. What would that team be made of?
We had it was myself and an architect, and we had a couple of people that we'd gotten for construction management and project controls. Mm-hmm. And we also had a team of consultants that worked with us, and the design builder that worked for the port. And we just sort of figured it out, and it really, it's the entire port works on it. Even though there's a core team that works day to day on the project, we really have to work closely with everybody, with security, with operations, with maintenance, with every department on the port. So it really like I said, it was the first time that the entire port really had to do one of these terminal expansions in the current, climate, basically. Mm.
And then switching gears a little bit, Helga, you were named a Rising Star in Civil and Structural Engineering magazine in 2015. I saw.
Oh my goodness! Yes, I was.
So what was that like, or did it change anything?
And it wasn't. It was some recognition that I definitely wasn't expecting. I was still working for a consultant, and I was working here at the port, and I had gotten nominated. It wasn't something I was expecting to get. Mm. You work and you do the day to day, and I guess you almost lose sight of the scale of what you're doing, and I forget that I'm in Miami and that I'm working at the cruise capital of the world, and I guess that's kind of a big deal, but day to day you don't think of it that way. And so that was a fun kind of almost embarrassing. They surprised me with cake and stuff, and I got my picture in a magazine, and it was funny.
Right.
So, but it was an honor, really. I wasn't expecting it.
So how did you get to that point that led up to that award?
I guess I'd been with I'd worked for a couple of consulting companies, and I'd been working for a while, and like I said, in some large projects, and as a deputy project manager, and then a project manager, and I guess I did something right along the way. I'm not sure.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about what you were doing before you came on to Port of Miami, but mm-hmm. What was kind of your education starting out background? I went to high school here in Miami. I went to University of Miami on scholarship, and I had double majored in civil engineering and in architectural engineering. Right. Really, the program was kind of easy to sort of tack that on, and I kind of enjoyed taking some of the architecture classes, so I figured why not. Mm. And close to when I graduated, they created a program to combine the bachelor's and the master's degrees, and I thought, oh well, I'll just tack that on too. I was working at a firm at the time, and I saw a lot of people that were quite a few years older than I was, and they were juggling their, families and trying to get a master's degree. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what, I'm just going to get it over with. And so that's exactly what I did. So I was still working. I was working about 20, 30 hours a week, and in project controls, actually, for the water and sewer department, program management contract also. And then I figured I'd just get my master's finished at the same time. And so that was it. So I kicked out the 3 degrees in 5 years and never went back. Nice. So did you always know you wanted to be an engineer then?
I was 7, I think, when I decided that I was going to be an architect, under the premise that I just wanted to build things. I liked the idea of being able to drive by something many years later and say, hey, I did that. And when I was about 11, I would say, I think my mother had explained to me, she goes, well, engineers get to build big things. Not that architects don't, but I guess she simplified it for me at that age. Mm-hmm. And she said, if you're a civil engineer, you get to build big roads and airports and big things. And I thought, okay, that's a great idea. And that's it. And so I've been going into engineering ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then engineering is traditionally male dominated. So what has been your experience with pushing past that?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely come a long way. I mean, I remember there not being, I mean, even when I was getting my bachelor's degree, there weren't too many girls in our classes. And, but, things have sort of changed. The port really is, a lot of leadership positions here are held by women. For the most part, it hasn't been an issue, but, you always run into people along the way that are, we all have a few interesting stories, basically, of some less progressive people we've run into.
Right. And Helga, what keeps you motivated in your career to continue?
I was thinking about this actually a couple of days ago, and it really is that so many years of studying when you're a kid and when you're in college and stuff, and you kind of can't wait till you grow up and you get to do this stuff, and somebody lets you sort of be in charge, and you kind of can get that responsibility, and then you realize that, oh my God, like this is it, like this is what you always wanted. You know what I mean? So it's hard and it's difficult and it's incredibly stressful, and some days are not easy, but oh my God, like I get to build really cool things, So that really, if you kind of take a step back a little bit, you kind of realize that this is what you always wanted, and you just sort of have to get through it. One day when things are not as busy, I'm going to miss this.
While not everyone knows what they want to do from a young age, people like Helga dream about what they want to be when they grow up and are able to stick to it and make it happen. We hope you're inspired by Helga's story to follow your dreams too. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.